Hello, everyone. I am Michelle Martin, the Peterson Business Librarian at Greenwich Library and a member on the Steering Committee for Women Owned Greenwich. Greenwich Library is pleased to partner with Women Owned Greenwich to bring you this program with thought leaders and investors in the profit and nonprofit sectors. They will discuss how we can recover from the current pandemic stronger, better, and more resilient than ever. This program will be recorded if you would like to have access to it after. Charlotte Walker is our moderator and also a member on the Steering Committee for Women Owned Greenwich. Charlotte is founder and president of TSF Management Incorporated. She has experience as a CEO in the technology and financial services industry and has co-founded 2 software companies. Charlotte is also a director and senior advisor to a number of early to mid-stage technology and media companies. Charlotte?
Michelle, thank you so much. And I want to first of all welcome everybody here today for this very, very important topic, and which I hope you'll find very interesting. And thank you for being part of this very important conversation. Thanks to the library for helping Women Owned Greenwich bring this discussion to the public, not just to our own membership. And for those of you who don't know, Women Owned Greenwich is a peer-to-peer mentoring organization for women who lead or own businesses or organizations in Greenwich, or who live in Greenwich and lead or own organizations outside of Greenwich. I want to quickly let the audience know that to please use the QA channel for any of your questions or comments. The chat channel is principally for emergencies and general questions. I encourage you to ask questions or make comments at any time during the course of our discussion. Comments will be highlighted by us, and questions will be answered in the order they are received. We will have a short break to answer questions on the half hour. And again, about 10 minutes before we adjourn the meeting at 2 o'clock. I just also want to alert you to the fact that we will be polling you. We have 3 very, very quick polls that we'll be putting out during the course of the webinar to participants. They're very short. They will pop up on your screen every 5 to 10 minutes or so. Please answer them as quickly as possible. We will display the results immediately after for everybody to see. So with that, I'd now like to introduce our very distinguished panel. I want to first introduce Sue Bodson, who has been recognized so many times I can't keep count for her community service. She is president and founder of Emboss, an event and fundraising firm focused on assisting nonprofits and businesses to turn their networks into event and fundraising partnerships. She also serves on the Board of Trustees of the Bruce Museum. Welcome, Sue, and thank you so much for being on the panel.
Thank you.
Next, Catherine Kern is a co-founder of Camaraderie, which is a unique, flexible office and meeting space. And as a former marketer for Leo Burnett, Catherine has been a pioneer in identifying new market opportunities for Fortune 500 clients and others. Today, as she is concerned and is very vocal about this, that resilience is at risk in organizations. I think we'll be hearing more from her today. Thank you, Catherine, for being here. Last but not least, I want to introduce Marie Roca, who is co-founder and managing partner at Realist Ventures, which is a Connecticut-based venture fund investing in tech, software, and biotech startups. And while Realist is not a social fund, it primarily invests in startups with a diverse team that are solving problems that can benefit everybody. Marie is also technology chair on the boards of Kids Helping Kids and Greenwich Academy. Marie, thank you again for your participation.
Yeah.
As you all know, the subject of this webinar is all about how we can rethink and reposition ourselves to take action as individuals and members of Greenwich. And how can we recover from the current pandemic stronger, better, and more resilient than ever? For all of us, I'm very sure COVID has caused us to soul search and reassess. In addition, the stresses of this pandemic have certainly magnified and brought to the fore systemic inequities surrounding race, demographics, but also infrastructure and our healthcare system, and even more weaknesses in our communities. You know, if there is a time to pivot, this would certainly be that time, I would think. And now I want to ask our panelists, is this why increasingly we have been hearing more about environmental, social, and governance measurements and standards, as well as corporate social responsibility? Has the pandemic just brought these problems to a head? And how do these issues tie into purpose and resilience in your mind? Marie, do you want to take a first crack?
Sure. And thank you for everyone who's here to listen to our conversation. I definitely think, you know, I've been highlighting the positives in this pandemic. I naturally am one of those people who find positives in the worst situations, so forgive me if that's not your thinking, but I think we needed to address a lot of these issues, especially when you're talking about healthcare and inequality, education. It's unfortunate they all burst at the same time. You know, a lot of areas are suffering from the cuts in funding for education and healthcare, on top of the issues we already had in underfunded healthcare and education. So I think it needed to happen. Hopefully what we'll see is more corporations leading the way and contributing more and funding more initiatives to prevent another, well, to ready us for the next pandemic.
Great, thank you. Catherine, what do you say?
Well, hello everybody. This is obviously an unusual way to get together, since I can't really look everybody in the eye, but hello out there, and thanks for listening. So I think that what's interesting today about purpose is it's actually pivoting too. As you talked about, there's been a lot more attention on climate change and other things that corporations could be focusing more on because they've impacted these things over time. This pandemic, I think, has brought more attention to the fact that we've also had a huge impact on human resilience all during this time as well. So what we're really thinking about is, how do you then, as you develop a purpose for the future that is to improve human resilience, what does that look like? And how do you design it? How do you measure it? All these things will help to motivate more people to collaborate and come up with win-win kinds of ideas and solutions that I think are really something that's been needed for a very long time.
Thank you. Sue, what do you say?
I have something to say. So I think, to answer the first part of your question, I think these issues definitely have always existed and have increased over time. But the pandemic definitely has heightened them and exacerbated the situation. And I think the pandemic has put corporate social responsibility to the test, and there has been a need to accelerate the transition from corporations from their nice to do list to a must do list, and that the enhanced risk of rising economic and social inequality has risen to the top, and companies have realized that they're responsible to their shareholders, their stakeholders, and their employees. In terms of the nonprofit world, which is really my wheelhouse, the nonprofits, we have mission statements. So this has been part of our purpose. There's always been a reason for a nonprofit to exist. It all goes back to their mission statement, and your mission statement is to inform the public of who you are and attract donors and focus the members of the nonprofit on a specific task. So I think that there's definitely a correlation between the two. It's just in the nonprofit world, it's looked at a little differently, but definitely the two are dovetailing together now.
Okay. So what is resilience? Catherine, can you answer that? What is resilience impact, and what does it mean to be resilient?
I think that if you look it up in the dictionary, probably a visual that would describe and what they talk about is a rubber band that is stretched and can pop back to its original spot. So in other words, resilience is being able to handle pressure and stress, but still be able to go on.
Yeah.
And I do think that we have a lot of organizations have take for granted that there's resilience when what we've been revealing and seeing more visibly is that maybe there isn't. And people have been stretched too far.
Got it. Marie, do you have any thoughts on what are the components that are most important for resilience?
For me, and I always think in terms of business startup as well. And so I think we need to, and when I'm thinking of resilience, it's not just bouncing back. It's usually an opportunity for me to self-reflect on things we could do better. In general, I think that's, we're tend to want to move on and get past situations. And I think in this situation now, we definitely need to reflect, definitely need to come up with policies that will help move us forward, in business and politics and personal lives as well, because I think all of that has been affected by this pandemic in general.
Great, very helpful. So back to you, Sue. You may be the closest to the Greenwich community and what's going on in this town from multiple different perspectives. What are the three greatest needs that you can identify just in the Greenwich community that are not resilient, that maybe we need to build resilience for?
Right. So certainly, if you asked me this question at the end of 2018, my answer might have been slightly different, but not wholly. I think one of the best things about Greenwich is our diversity. But it's also now created a big challenge for us. And so let me explain what I mean by diversity. We, like Martha's Vineyard, has 6 different very unique towns. Greenwich is like Martha's Vineyard and not like Nantucket, where there's just one town and one experience. Every part of Greenwich you go into, whether it's Byram or Backcountry or Sound Beach Avenue and Old Greenwich, it has a different feel. And the people live there because they want to live there, and the people are diverse. And they're diverse in many ways, right? And I think that the pandemic has created obviously our inability to come together physically. And that's really hard, because if you are talking about building up a community and making a community stronger without that physical ability to come together in events like the town party, where lots of people come together, we're a little hamstrung there. Our diversity is also obviously very economic. 19.8% of Greenwich Public School children are on free reduced lunch. That's a really big number, and a lot of people don't realize that. And the other challenge that I think we have right now is we have a lot of mom and pops who are suffering and have really taken a hit because of the pandemic. So, there are stores on Greenwich Avenue that you can find within Saks, okay? Those same stores are in Saks. What makes us a wonderful community is we have these unique little mom and pop stores, and it's going to be a challenge to help keep them afloat.
Yeah, I just learned that from a neighbor who is a teacher that 50% of the children at Jillian Curtis are on, are in the low income category. Right. That was actually a surprise to me. I was thinking 30% as Greenwich High School. So there are members of our community who are really struggling right now.
Correct.
For all of you, the number one response to our first question, what does purpose mean to you, is having a meaning bigger than myself or my business. Second was having a mission, and third was having a goal. So thank you, everybody, for responding to that question. So does anyone else have thoughts, Catherine or Marie, on needs in just our community, in the Greenwich community?
I definitely think that, again, I'm hoping after all of this, there will be more efforts put toward more inclusive, creating an inclusive town. I know Greenwich is kind of split up, but I think that one of the things that I often think about is how can we make it more inclusive for everyone? And, you know, I'm surprised to hear that the number of kids that are of need, because when you think of Greenwich or even Fairfield County, we think of a lot of wealth and concentrated wealth. And it's I think now we have an opportunity to crowdfund some of these projects without needing government to step in. I've seen other places where parents stepped up and collected food and clothing and sort of supported their community. And I think that when you're talking about the gaps in Greenwich, we have so many opportunities to change a lot of that. And so it's really thinking outside the box, being creative, and then also pulling resources to create these initiatives that we want to see further down, because I think that's what everyone is looking forward to, hopefully.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, great. So you've almost answered, how can we make our community stronger without our government doing it, Marie? Can you drill down a little bit more on, you know, what might be some steps that we can take as a community to make ourselves more resilient and stronger?
Sure. You know, as I said, there are plenty of opportunities to crowdsource and pull our resources together. Yeah. There are a lot of opportunities that, you know, just to volunteer and give time and mentor kids who are sort of in the more underrepresented category, or I hate the term underprivileged, but yeah, there are a lot of opportunities to do a lot of that. And I think in general, if we pull the kind of, you know, in our schools and my kids' schools, often our PTOs, the moms are amazing at pulling resources and being really crafty. If we can take some small percentage of some of that energy, I mean, we can really make a huge impact in what Greenwich means in terms of equitable opportunity and inclusive place for everyone to be.
Those are great ideas. Catherine or Sue, any thoughts?
Well, I think that one of the things that I experienced when I first moved here, I was on a board with the social services department. And one of the things I learned is we were helping the food bank raise money and came up with the idea of partnering with some of the local privately owned grocery stores to do it all year round. And I think it's these kinds of partnerships and taking advantage of the assets that are out there to do things together that really are ways to stretch further what we have and be more resilient as a community. So much of what we do today is isolated because of the way we consume media and the way we live our lives, and we're so busy. So I think to the extent that we can create some ways to bring more people together and collaborate and talk and practice conversing like this about ways we can help each other and being more aware of and understanding where the problems are that need to be solved, and where there are assets that folks have to commit to help. Those conversations can be really productive and very fast and solve things much more quickly than, you know, going through the government channels and other things like that.
Yeah. So that really means individuals and businesses, small and big alike, really stepping up and being part of the solution.
Yeah, I think businesses are often either A, too busy.
Yeah.
Or B, and by the way, a lot of businesses are under a lot of stress right now, but to have those conversations and take the time, I think is just so productive on so many levels to get things done quickly, as opposed to emails and all the other ways we have to try to, but that's why camaraderie is here. We started a place to have a place to meet face to face, and so people can talk about things, and that's when things happen.
Yeah.
Charlotte,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, so for example, the Junior League, which I'm very familiar with and have been a member for many years, the Junior League identifies a need in a community, and it works towards a solution for that need. And an example of that would be the Greenwich pool at Byron Park. And that effort was over a decade in the making. So talk about resiliency, okay? And working towards a purpose. I mean, I'm being totally serious. It took over a decade to,
Wow.
to take that, meet that, look at that need, convince people there was a need, because there were people who did not believe there was a need in our government. So we had to do that. And then work together over a decade to bring it to fruition. And so when I think about a project like that, and there's many other examples that I can give you for the League, it really requires commitment from people, okay? And the only way you're gonna get a commitment from someone like that is either love what they do, or they care about the impact that it's going to have. In my case, it was both. And so I think that feeds into your purpose question, right?
Yeah.
It's my purpose,
Right.
and what is the purpose of what is the purpose of my activity?
Yeah. Helpful. So we just had our second poll results, and just so that everybody can see, 34% of our audience are solo entrepreneurs. 19% lead or work at a small business organization. That would be 2 to 50 employees. And 16% lead or work at a large business of 500 or more employees. We have some retired people on our call, and 19%, 6% lead or work at a mid-sized business. So we have a very nicely diverse group in our audience. Thank you very much for answering that question, folks. So I'd like to, not go on to our next question, which is really more about examples of businesses or organizations, locally or nationally for that matter, that you believe have policies around environmental, social governance, or corporate responsibility in place, or have purpose and resilience that our audience can emulate or use it as examples for themselves.
My favorite company, and I'm lactose intolerant, is Ben & Jerry's for that.
Okay.
Early on, they were built around this mission, and when founders create businesses, there's always that fear of whether to lead with a good or social responsible initiative, and if customers will come. And I think if you think about the last 15, 20 years, so much has changed, and a lot of it has been driven by consumers. If you think of, better quality foods, right? Better quality products, green companies, all of that has been pushed. I mean, if customers didn't come, I don't think Walmart would have changed their policies around a lot of these things. So Ben & Jerry's is one of my favorite companies because of that. They were founded around the social missions of, racial justice, democracy, equality, and they've done a great job. There are many others from, that have, and I want to say in the last 5 years, done a lot to include the underserved and provide opportunities from clothing. Like I think it's Zappos for Good, who started an initiative to help. There's Tom's, which was another one of my favorite, which basically started with a component. You buy a pair of shoes, we give another. Most people I don't think would consider, like 15 years ago, I thought it wasn't gonna make it, but here we are many years later. It's been doing really well. There are many examples, Bombas and all these companies that I absolutely love. Patagonia is another one that comes to mind. I mean, they've donated so much to green projects and initiatives to help. So I think when you're thinking of business going forward, after this pandemic, that's going to be even more crucial. More and more people will focus on supporting companies that are doing good for that, or rather creating businesses that are benefiting everyone.
Those are great examples, Marie. Thank you very much. Sue, is there anybody locally in your mind that comes to mind?
Well, yes, many actually. I think you're talking about nonprofits or
nonprofits or for-profit.
Well, I mean, I know, talk about bringing the community together. We are really fortunate in this town that we have people who are willing to roll up their sleeves and they want to get involved. And what I really saw and impressed me, and it was all over Instagram and so other social media channels, were people supporting our local restaurants, and then the restaurants or caterers delivering food to the frontline workers, whether it's the Greenwich Police Department or the Fire Department or Greenwich Hospital. And so that just, to me, that was a win-win, because you're supporting a local business, but then you're helping and supporting these people on the front lines that are working hours and hours. So I think, that it just pay it forward, right? It just sort of made me feel really good about it. And then, I think like nonprofits and other organizations have found that in the COVID world during the pandemic, how do I support my members? So an example, one of my clients is Parsonage Cottage, which is a residence for elderly on Parsonage Road. It's next to Nathaniel Witherell. It's not part of Nathaniel Witherell. It's its own place. And there's 40 residents there. And the director, Penny Lore, realized that obviously she could not have family members come to the cottage and visit with the members that were there. So she did an iPad drive, and she elicited the help of her junior advisory board, and they put the word out. And within a number of days, she had $5,000 and over 40 donated, used and new iPads that she could repurpose and give to the residents, so each resident could have their own experience with their loved ones and friends. And it just, I just thought it was a great example of, addressing a need and pulling in the community and donors to help you address that need.
Fantastic. Catherine, any thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking about a lot of the businesses that that I know about that are in the local area, and also members here at Camaraderie that have hit some tough times, especially nonprofits. So for example, Hilarity for Charity is here, and that raises money to give grants to caregivers for Alzheimer's patients. And most of these nonprofits rely on events and gatherings, which are now, not going to happen. So I really think that one of the things to think about is, and I'm sure Sue is thinking about this all the time, new models for how to raise money for nonprofits.
Yeah,
and
it's a big issue.
What that looks like, and
Right.
Getting creative and thinking about it as maybe not one big thing, but something that people do all the time. And the same thing could be for some small businesses. Maybe they're new business models for small restaurants where folks, almost subscribe, so that those owners know that they're going to have so much business. It's tough to be, especially in a situation like this when you can't exactly project what things are going to be like for the next 6 months.
Right.
And when you look at what your business was like for the last 4 weeks, because who knows who's coming back. So I think that these are things that things that we could do as a community for these businesses to help them, you know, have a much more reliable base to take risks. They have to take risks. A lot of them did get loans, for example, but some of them are afraid to use them because what if the business doesn't come back and here you are with a loan that you have to pay back and, you know, bing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Well, this is a good time for us to pause. We do have some questions, and our folks have all finished the last poll, and that's how has your business or work been affected by COVID-19? 20% of our participants had to shut down. 44% are still doing some business. 20% business has actually increased. 16% have not been affected. So again, I would say that, you know, this is reflective of what might be happening nationally.
Well, very varied anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So questions that we have. I'm looking for organizations that can amplify my contribution, whether it is volunteer or dollars. For racism, I am looking to the YWCA mission. Its mission is eliminating racism. Are there other organizations that are positioned to amplify in education and healthcare? Anybody want to take that on?
I did not realize the YMCA was changing their mission.
It's YW. It's a YW.
I mean, sorry, YW.
All
right.
good.
One of the things I've always done is at the local level is to really just focus on how I can impact individual lives of primarily children and women. Those are the things I focused on. Obviously, as a Black woman, it goes without saying that I'd be supportive of people of color, but as a whole, I think we could do better by just collaborating. And so if, for example, you know, a nonprofit is steering away from missions that would better the community, reach out to them, have a sit down. That's what I've done in the past. I've just reached out to, which I will after this, but just kind of understand why they're making those changes. I'm a huge proponent of inclusive spaces for people. And that goes for everyone, because I think it's very important. And that goes with, you know, like whether you can advocate for people who can't for themselves. So I mentor a lot of kids of the LGBTQA plus AI plus community, because those are often kids who can't advocate for themselves. They don't have the parental supports, they don't have the network. So as a whole, that's one thing you can do. It doesn't have to be, I'm a proponent also of like taking your small steps of things that you can accomplish without relying on government or other nonprofit and et cetera. So that would be one way. I did not know this information prior to this, else I would have called them and done some research, but I definitely think that these are initiatives that, Kathy, you can take on your own and would do a lot of work to improve. And again, collaborate with the rest of us who might be interested as well.
All right, fantastic. We have another question from Karen Payson. Who's the best person or organization to speak to if someone wants to volunteer to mentor kids in underserved populations?
So that is tricky because things are not necessarily in person right now, and it's virtual, and we don't know, you know, at what point in time the in-person experience will be allowed to happen. But I would say Greenwich Boys and Girls Club is a great place to start. Kids in Crisis really does not allow, I don't believe they allow for outside people. They have a staff, so to physically or to mentor someone one-on-one, I don't think that's possible. There is an organization called Horizons at Brunswick, and Horizons is a national organization. It just happens to be based at Brunswick School. So I encourage you to Google them. They serve the that population. That's just off the top of my head, I would say. Neighbor to neighbor.
There's also the, I think the Greenwich Alliance, which is doing a fantastic job. So through COVID and who knows how long we'll be in quarantine, if you have specific skill set, you can reach out to most organizations and offer it. I just mentored about, I don't know, 7 girls who are looking into starting their own businesses out of New York. I think they're in Brooklyn. Just kind of reached out to the founder and plugged me in, and for like 6 weeks, we just kind of touched base. They had their pitch yesterday, which was absolutely amazing. You can reach out to social workers in the public schools. They are often willing to help coordinate some of that, which is what I've done. I've never really done anything too formal. I just kind of reach out whenever I have a gap in my schedule. So those are easy ways. If you want to email me, I can put it on here, but I'm reachable on my website. It's my actual email address, so you can email me, and I'm happy to help coordinate some opportunities for anyone who's interested as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Marie. We have some more questions, but I do want to move on with some action items and action questions that I have for the panelists. And so what we will do is pick up on the questions, at the end in just about 10 minutes or so. So the next question I have are, what are the benchmarks and metrics or key performance indicators of success in having purpose and resilience? What are the pillars of that for a solo entrepreneur or an organization of any size? Anybody want to take a stab? Marie, all right.
I'll try. Sorry. So obviously, I'll come at this from a sort of founder's point of view, where I think growth rate is important right now. Really showing where your revenue path is for Q3 and Q4, because I think things will pick up. And I think you'll have to sort of like think about what fall will look like for your business when you're talking COVID, possibly food virus, and etc. Looking into platforms you can use to better your business can be incorporated into that growth opportunity as well. It's a really good time to evaluate financial risk or rather the financial health of your business as a whole, because again, I know some people receive PPP loans, there's so many P's, PPP loans and et cetera, and support, but they may not be sustainable. And so it's really an opportunity to look at where you can expand and find new funding and tweak your models and for profitability. And risk assessment, because I definitely think that as a whole, every business needs to start thinking about whether it's technology that they can use to leverage, whether it's better cleaning or pandemic preparedness. Oh, and there's hurricane season upon us. I mean, there are just so many other things that I think for startups or solo founders, I guess they haven't really thought of, and I've talked to a lot of them since COVID, but and I was really surprised how unprepared some businesses were. But this presents, again, a huge opportunity to take a look at how we can achieve growth without compromising mental health. But there's also a lot of opportunities, I think, to do that with technology as well.
Yeah. Catherine, I bet you have some ideas on this.
Well, I think that one of the things that I have been focused on lately is that, so much focus has been on scale, economies of scale, financial resilience, and very little really on the actual human capital that's part of your ecosystem, whether it's your employees or your partners, I think that, or even your customers for that matter. There's a lot to be gained by having conversations with them, reaching out and hearing where they are in the process. There may be not only hidden risks that caught you off guard in this crisis, but there may be hidden assets or opportunities to partner or do things differently. that don't necessarily cost a whole lot, but just have a multiplier effect on both the results for both partners. I think that, as I discussed, this new sense of empathy for the impact on humans and what's happening for people is good, because what it starts to do is open a conversation for hearing where people are and understanding how they can help each other. And that's an opportunity today. And I think it's something I'm dedicated to helping with right now with businesses, to help them have a better sense of who their ecosystem is, how they're doing. You know, there's a lot of folks here who are solopreneurs that are members of Camaraderie, and you know, I have done it myself. I know what it's like. I know that, you know, the procurement officers have been forcing everybody to lower their prices and making it harder to make deals and paying later. And, you know, these things have put a lot of stress on that part of the economy. And it's something that is, you know, there should be more negotiations, more conversations about what's really in everybody's best interest to work together for shared prosperity.
Thank you. Sue, do you have thoughts on benchmarks and metrics? What are the key performance indicators of success in having purpose and resilience?
So we've heard the adage, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, right? So,
yeah.
Right. And, you know, in the nonprofit world, definitely your touch rate and your donor, you know, attracting your donors, retaining your donors, the donor attrition is really important. And obviously that's been very challenged in this COVID world. I love the point that Catherine made about people coming together, and what nonprofits have. That's exactly what nonprofits are doing. They're banding together to meet a need. And I'll give you an example. One of my clients, Children's Learning Center of Fairfield County, and primarily located in Stamford, they came together. They've obviously been closed. However, they do have children there now who are the children of healthcare workers at Stamford Hospital. So they were able to open up to a small group of children, but their clientele it still has a need for food and medical supplies and diapers. So they were able to band together with a food bank out in Norwalk, and the name is escaping me, of course, along with Mothers for Others, which is based here in Greenwich, and then another group of kids called West Hill Angels. They're a group of rising seniors who band together at West Hill High School in Stamford. And those three organizations have been supporting CLC with, they did a diaper drive, obviously, a food drive, and also a book drive. And it just, again, it's a great example of people, different organizations coming together
Yeah.
to meet a need in the community. So when I think about a key performance indicator, right, it's again, it's expanding not just your donor base and the people that are, you know, learning about your organization, but now they've done it not even twofold, right? Quadruple fold or whatever that's called, because now they've band together with these other organizations.
Yeah.
That's really great.
Yeah, no, that is fantastic. So now I've got two last questions that I want each of the panelists to answer, because I think each of you will have, you know, some pretty unique viewpoints. And the first is, how can a solo entrepreneur, business or organization make an impact on communities?
I think right now, again, it's a unique opportunity for local businesses to kind of step up and be part of their community. As Sue pointed out, many examples of how they've done that, but going forward, sponsor local events, partner up with charities. Those are easy, feel-good PRs that anyone can do, whether it's cash or if you have space or goods that you can donate. Think of ways to really impact lives that would come back once they're like back on their feet kind of thing. And I'm a proponent of encouraging people to volunteer. I think that we all have idle time where we can give like an hour, and it's simple things like, you know, I think my daughter they're running a food drive on our street through Kids Helping Kids. I didn't think of it, but she's like, oh, I have nothing to do. I'm just gonna print some flyers, and it became this big thing that they're doing. So even kids are finding ways to give back. So therefore, solo entrepreneurs can easily do that. Make your location a drop-off center. That's an easy PR that you can it's sort of like co-marketing with other nonprofit, which doesn't mean that you need to start your own initiatives, but partnering with companies or nonprofits that are already doing that. But yeah, collaborate, co-market, co-promote, sponsor, offer discounts to healthcare workers and teachers and police officers and people who are sort of like, and I forget the term that was used, but the not headline workers, but the frontline workers. Really partnering with them. I think healthcare right now is going to be an interesting one going forward. 43 million people at last I checked, it could be more now, are out of work. It's going to be interesting to see how we navigate, but there are opportunities to support those communities, whether, again, if you have a location, provide the space off hours. That's huge to people who are looking for ways to learn.
Fabulous ideas. Thank you. Catherine or Sue, any thoughts?
Sure. Well, I think, you know, companies and moms and pops, have been sponsoring events for a long time. That's nothing new. Okay. But you don't need you don't need an event to give back to the community and give back to an organization. That is new. Well, not necessarily new, but it's definitely more of the norm going on right now. So you see, there's a small mom and pop toy store on Greenwich Avenue, Funky Monkey, and they have partnered with several different organizations to give back. Kids in Crisis and Neighbor to Neighbor, where they, you know, have promoted their ability to deliver or to do the curbside pickup before the in-store person experience was available, and a percentage of the proceeds went back to that organization. So in other words, what I'm trying to say is you don't need a specific event to create a give back situation. There's plenty of need in the community. So, and if someone has a desire to do that, they just need to call me or email me, and I'll hook them up with whoever they want. I will connect them. That's actually part of what I do. So it's a very easy fix. If you have the desire and the will, I can help you.
Yeah, you can make the connection.
Totally.
Yeah, Catherine, I'm going to ask you, have you kick off the next question, because we're right up on the 10 minutes of the hour, and I want to get to our last questions that are in the queue. Is there one simple thing any of our participants can do tomorrow to start the process of repositioning or pivoting to be more purposeful and more resilient?
Well, I've probably said this a couple of times already.
Okay.
But I will say that we're all been in isolation for a long time, and sure, we're doing a lot of these Zoom things and everything. But I say, reach out to people one-on-one, talk to them, find out how they're doing. I think that as we saw from some of the poll results that you have here, there's a real wide variety of situations people are in. You know, some are businesses that had more demand, some have been shut down, some are, you know, not quite up to par as where they were before. And all I can say is talk to your customers, talk to your partners, find ways that start looking for things that you have in common that you can help each other with. And move forward in that way, because this is a great time to really reach out and ask for help. This is the time when people can really help each other.
All right, fantastic. Marie?
I echo Catherine's point. I definitely agree in terms of, you know, it's been awful for a lot of people, whether you've lost family members and et cetera, and I have too. But I think it's also an opportunity for all of us in the space to rethink of how we want to be more prepared for these things going forward. And I don't mean from a financial point alone, but just overall building a networking community. I know for myself, I'm a self-proclaimed introvert, and I thought this was going to be the most amazing time of my life. But I'm a member of Haven, which started having these halftime events where I would clock in, and it just was so great to be part of that community, which I didn't think I needed. And because I love spending time alone, but when forced, it's a little difficult. And so I tapped into that network. You know, we collaborated on some things. We've, you know, had discussions. I've done some yoga stuff. Like, it's just been amazing to really reach out to our community and find it. And when you're thinking about going forward, you know, again, think of how you can create purpose within your organization that's long lasting. And I don't mean the fluffy stuff, but really how you could step up and help, you know, your community and the event of need. And a lot of businesses have been birthed out of these opportunities to help. I think I know a guy in New Jersey who was delivering to the elderly because he had a lot of time, and now he's creating a business by accident, but it's working out. And so purpose does not mean charitable, right? It can be profitable. And so this is a great opportunity for everyone to really think about how they can incorporate both into their businesses onward.
Awesome. Great ideas. Sue?
So I will say that the pandemic really forced me to rewrite my playbook on how I cope. I'm a people person, and so, you know, and I would, you know, exercise in a group situation. I would be with friends, and so now I've had to, you know, really rewrite that component of my playbook. But I realized that resiliency really calls for a shift in our mindsets and how we recover and how we navigate through a challenge. So part of that shift for me was to recognize and accept that it was okay for me to be sad and mad about the situation, not emotions I'm really used to living in. But what really helped is when I realized that I used to ask my husband, what day is it? How many days has this been? And when is it going back to normal? And when I realized that resiliency isn't so much about it's not a destination. So it doesn't really matter when life goes back to normal, because I don't think it's going to be back to the normal that we all knew. It's going to be a new normal. And being resilient for me has to do with a transformation in now a mind shift, right? And a transformation in my beliefs and my attitudes regarding what the new normal is going to be. So I would say to people listening, if that's one thing you can do, like really think about how your mindset in terms of what you think about for how you're coping and how you can be resilient. And I loved what Marie said about, you know, it doesn't have to be a charitable thing. It can definitely be a profitable thing, right? It's just meeting the need. You meet the people where they are. And that has become very different in many aspects of our life now.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. And we have a couple of questions left here. There is a comment from Claire Kilgallen I just want to make everybody aware of, that the in-school element for volunteering at schools for things like reading champions via the United Way is suspended until further notice, which, you know, I'm sorry to hear, because that seems like that could be something that, you know, could take place virtually to some extent. Our other question is from, and if anybody has comments on that, love to hear it. Our last question is from Kathy Blood. Should we be looking at B Corp designation to find companies to support nationally beyond Tom's, Patagonia, etc.? And where are the best lists for national corporate social responsibility?
That's you, Sue. I'm not sure, but I mean, that's a really good question. I think we can probably circle back on, but that's definitely not, I don't have a list per se, but that would be,
No,
yeah.
I don't have a list off the top of my head either, but I mean, really, I think there are companies here in Greenwich and locally who are doing things. I mean, between Greenwich and Stamford, think about all the corporations that we have. And so there's an opportunity there to reach out to those people and figure out. Many of them have stuff on their website now. I mean, they realize they have to be socially responsible. It's like I said in the beginning, it's not a nice to do. It's a must do now. But off the top of my head, I don't have a list either.
Yeah, well, I should mention that Barron's publishes a list for ESR measurement, and it's at least once a year. So I can make that available to to our participants, probably. And there's lots of other organizations that publish that list because it's becoming a big deal right now. And everybody should know that, the companies or organizations that have the higher measurements on, ESG tend to be higher performing companies, more profitable, faster growing, all that sort of thing, which plays into the whole idea of, how resilience and corporate responsibility, diversity, and all of those things, equity, all of those things play into better performance for a company. So my gosh, if you have that in your economy, what can you do? B Corps, any thought on the B Corps and if that's a good thing, or should we be finding those companies? Is a B Corp designation a good thing to have? Does it benefit being a B Corp?
I don't know.
No further thoughts?
I'm certainly not an expert in that, but I definitely see some benefits and in general, social impact companies have done well. The problem, I think, to some degree, there are a lot of confusions around social impact companies because we tend to tie impact and social good into nonprofits, right? And so it's really trying to educate more. I think that's probably the issue. But no, there's nothing wrong with B Corps. I think that, I personally made a choice a long time ago to mostly shop companies that are giving back, that are creating initiatives to reduce their carbon footprints. And all of that is how I shop now. And I mostly shop local for that reason, because then I can have a direct relationship with a vendor through the small business. And so there are many lists of those companies that you can find. And I don't think, for our fund, we did not focus there. Hopefully in the future, that's something that I certainly would focus on, but it was just difficult first fund to really just go bullish on like all the areas that I'm passionate about. But I definitely would love to see more funds supporting B Corp companies, as well as our founders, as well as social impact founders, for sure.
Terrific. Well, we are after the hour, and I want to point out that Andrea has a suggestion where to find companies who are socially responsible: B Corps, B Labs, and Conscious Capitalism. Thank you very much, Andrea, for bringing that up. I want to thank each and every one of you. You were fabulous today. Great ideas, great responses. Really loved it. Michelle, thank you so much for bringing this all together. Thank our audience for your responses and your participation. All very appreciated. I hope you've all found it helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.